Okay, we're here back for another game review. This is called Repo. Basically, think of the other game. God, I can't remember what it's called. It came out long before Repo. Kind of the same thing where you take on different SPs, SCP creatures, and bring items back to your little trolley or your truck or whatever it might happen to be. Repo is kind of like the same principle like that, except you were using different customers' characters. I'd say it's maybe a little more harder, maybe a little more difficult than the actual previous game than what I'm thinking of. For the life of me, I cannot think of the name of it. Now, once again, one of those games we've seen a lot of YouTubers play. H2 Delirious, Cartoons, Dead Squirrel. I think even with Dashy and other fellow YouTubers like Chill Chaos and them all play this game. The multiplayer is still decently alive. I think they were playing it long before multiplayer was even a thing, so you really had to just have friends to play with. Now, for if you're not into horror games, this may not be a game for you. It does have some forms of jump scares, some form of enemies that may, scare you. You can definitely tell when either you're getting close to your goal or there's a certain time limit in this game where the ambient dark music starts to increase, or you can usually tell when there's an enemy nearby or within the next following room. Difficulty wise, I can say playing this game on single player is not easy. It's like playing Call of Duty on veteran mode. I mean, this game will definitely give you a challenge. I furthest I got into it was like level 3 before it died to, I think it was like either the eyeball or the floating head. There are certain enemies that do need certain activations. So, like my very first time ever playing this game, I came across the kid was blowing up the red balloons. I mainly thought of Pennywise and this kid, and then died after that. Came back, and then the next fallen enemy was the Reaper, which is a little girl that has blades or swords for hands. So I immediately thought of Edward Scissorhands, and immediately killed me, and constantly kept dying too, which was kind of really annoying. This is a game I highly recommend you do have friends for, because it just makes it more comedic. You get more fun time out of it. I do know that the game does increase its difficulty the further you go into. I've gotten to like a level 4 before I pretty much actually just quit. Public games are still decent. You can get maybe 5 or 6 games. Of course, I'm playing on the West Coast, so it may differ depending on where you actually live. There is voice commentary to it. You can just type in chat too. It has like a little robotic voice thing to it, so if you don't feel like using your mic or if you don't have a mic, you can still communicate with your team that way. But yes, playing this game on single player will definitely give you a challenge. Even if you're not afraid of horror games, the challenge alone of this game is still very difficult. I gave it at least a solid 8 out of 10 difficulty wise to trying to choose the right items, trying to actually get out of there. As you'll be able to see, there's a 0 out of 1, basically meaning that you only have to get the certain amount of money that's up top, which is 8,344, and once that's done, that's basically kind of like your objective goal. You just achieved the one goal for that one level. I'm pretty sure it will probably slowly increase more. I got to level 4 and it was still like 0 out of 2, so you have to continue to get money for that goal of that level. So if the second checkpoint is still having to get 8,300, then you need 8,300. Otherwise, either enemies will take you out like that one did with the big head, or I don't know if you can actually run out of items in the levels or not. Never really actually experienced that, so no clue on that. I'm still fairly new to this game. I have played with random people in public games. It was decent. But yeah, I occasionally will play this on and off. I pretty much got bored of my other games, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get Repo while it's still on the Steam sale, try it out for myself. There are different levels. There's a mansion, there's the human art museum here, there's like a few other ones. So they're not always duplicate, but I'm pretty sure they're still limited in their maps. So it's basically kind of like think Phasmophobia, where it has a certain maps and then eventually might update it to adding more maps to the game itself. Not 100% sure though, so don't take my word on that. When it comes to enemy wise, the enemies vary. They can go from being a really simple enemy to not bumping into stuff to an enemy where they can actually one-shot you. For instance, like I said, the kid was using the red balloons. There's a little kid, undead kid in here, who will blow up red balloons. You may hear cars go by. I do apologize. And as long as you don't pop his balloons, he's perfectly fine. He'll leave you alone. And if he's within the vicinity of where you accidentally popped one of his balloons, he will chase after you and start beating you up. You can actually hide under tables. You can hide under chairs. Be aware that some enemies are actually just as small as you can crouch, so they can actually reach you under tables and chairs. There are some enemies who actually will attack you at a horizontal angle, so where they can actually still attack you even if you're hiding under that stuff. There's enemies that have death lasers, enemies that can blow up. There's actually 2 invincible enemies in the game. I believe one of them is one of them's not the duck. I don't remember what it is. I know one of them is the evil eye. Basically, if it catches you, you're pretty much over and done with. Especially on single player, there's no way to get out of it, and it will just constantly take your life. I do not remember what the other enemy is. One of them is a giant, like, orange golem looking dude. He carries a giant mace. He can actually one-shot you if you're not careful enough. This is where in the area where you'll actually come across a store. If we're actually reaching that part, stores will have different items, different upgrades. Be aware that those upgrades are a one-time use, and not only just that, if you die, your upgrades do not follow over. They are not permanent. They're only for that level until you actually die or you leave the game. So be aware of that. Overall experience, yes, I would recommend playing this with friends. If you're really that bored, you can play it on single player if you really want much of a challenge. But these are one of those games that if you have a lot of Steam friends or a lot of family and friends, it's definitely a game that I think you'll have a pretty good time out of it until you eventually burn yourself out just being bored of it, or they continue to update it with new enemies or updating new maps. So that's R.E.P.O. If I do remember what the name of that one game that is I was trying to think of, I will actually put it in the description below. But I think I'm going to start doing my game reviews like this instead of just actual gameplay itself. Makes commentary a lot more easier, less background noise, stuff like that, and less disruptions and stuff too. But either way, stay safe, health, and sanitize. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave comments below. Make sure to check out the rest of my videos. And I hope your Christmas or New Year's Eve is going good, and I hope 2026 is better for you guys. I'll see you guys.